Hello, my family of ice and fire. Today we are back with episode 3 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. If you haven't seen it already, I've already covered episodes 1 and 2 of the new season here on the channel, so feel free to go ahead and check those out. In today's new episode, we gotta look at some new dragons, war preparations, food for the fangirls, and what could be a prophecy. If you're new to these videos, I'll just be doing a deep dive into the latest episode of House of the Dragon, giving my thoughts, opinions, speculations, and making some references to the books that the show may or may not have deviated from, like that ending conversation with Alicent and Rhaenyra, which did not happen in Fire and Blood, but we'll get to that in due time. While this video will contain some references from the books, I will not be going into any spoilers for any future episodes. So sit back, relax, grab a snack, and if you like what I have to say, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to join my Imperial Court so as to never miss a video. Now, let's get into it. The first thing that we need to talk about is the intro for episode 3. If you guys haven't developed a habit for skipping it and watched it all the way through, you notice that we have 2 new additions to the opening sequence. The intro of Season 2 is a tapestry, chronicling the history of House Targaryen up to recent events. Last season, it was a model of Old Valyria that showcased the bloodline of the Targaryen family. As the season went on, new additions to the bloodline were added as more Targaryens were born. In Season 2, it seems that every major event will be added to the tapestry. We first see the funeral of Prince Jaehaerys, whose head was cut off during Blood and Cheese. We also see the hanging of the rat catchers ordered by Aegon as a way to get justice for his son. You also see blood flowing through the tapestry and towards the Iron Throne instead of more string, which seems to signify that this is how history will be written from now on. The episode opens with a dispute between houses Blackwood and Bracken in the Riverlands. You may remember these families from season 1 of House of the Dragon when this kid, known as Willem Blackwood, fought and supposedly killed Gerald Bracken. In the books, this fight was between different people, Samwell Blackwood and Amos Bracken, who fought for Rhaenyra's favor, and during that fight, the Brackens actually beat the Blackwoods, instead of the other way around. Here, you see the families fighting over these boundary stones, and this is just a drop in the bucket between these houses. The Bracken and Blackwood families have been fighting for years, and they will be enemies for many more years to come, and down the line, they become pretty heavily involved with the Targaryen royals in the time of Aegon IV. The Brackens and Blackwoods are always fighting over something, be it boundary stones or whose breast a mountain is named after. No, I am not joking, that is a literal argument that these families have. These guys have been aggroed so long that no one really knows what started the animosity between them in the first place. There have been attempts to move past it, there have been marriage pacts between the two families to bring them together, so there is Blackwood blood in every Bracken and Bracken blood in every Blackwood. Yet somehow they always end up back at square one. It's a family feud to rival that of the Greens and the Blacks, and perhaps this constant hate and fighting is a bit of a glimpse into the future for House Targaryen. This becomes something even darker to think about, because this whole encounter was a prelude to the Battle of the Burning Mill. There are dead Brackens and Blackwoods everywhere, and it's in this battle that Samwell Blackwood and Amos Bracken, the guys I mentioned from the books earlier, died, and this is also mentioned in the show. The Battle of the Burning Mill is seen as the first true battle of the Civil War with opposing armies, but as we find out later on in the episode, many think that this was just another excuse for these guys to kill each other, and that it honestly means nothing in the grand scheme. The next scene is of the burial of the Cargyle brothers, Eric and Auric. Last episode, Auric posed his twin brother to infiltrate Dragonstone, but tried and failed to kill Rhaenyra as his brother found him. We come to find out later on that the reason Rhaenyra was saved is because Mysaria actually ran back to Dragonstone after seeing Auric having already seen his twin brother and informing him. After defeating his brother, Eric, who was confirmed to have won the fight last episode, took his own life after killing his own brother. Jacaerys calls Auric a villain, and that he sullies the grave of his brother. But right or wrong, Rhaenyra says that she can't fault him for keeping his oath. And this is cause for an interesting topic of conversation. When it comes to duty and honor, what makes a person evil? It's a pretty big thing in George's works, the question of morality, how things conflict, how things like honor and duty can conflict with your own personal beliefs and feelings, which was pretty exemplified in the last episode. The brothers don't want to fight, but duty and honor to their respective beliefs bids them otherwise. So is Auric an evil man for doing what he was told and following orders, even though he didn't exactly want to? Is he really a baseless villain? What about Eric? He did his duty and defended Rhaenyra from his brother, killing him in the process, and kinslaying seems one of the most heinous crimes in Westeros. So with that knowledge in mind, he should be seen as a villain too for killing his own brother. Or maybe not. Love is the death of duty, and duty is the death of love. Some things supposedly matter more than your own kin. Things conflict and overlap all the time in life, and at the end of the day, these two were just brothers who were torn apart by the division of another family. Rhaenys approaches Rhaenyra and tells her that she believes Otto and Alicent had no part in this attack, but Rhaenyra is a bit stubborn, and for a moment refuses to see the possibility that just as she had no part in the death of Jaehaerys, Alicent had no part in the assassination attempt against her. Rhaenys says that hotter blood has prevailed, and soon they won't even remember what began the war in the first place. But Rhaenyra thinks she knows. She says the war started the moment the Greens took the throne, but Rhaenys begs to differ. She says that's one answer, but that it may not be the answer. Was it the Greens taking the throne from Rhaenyra that started things, or was it the death of Jaehaerys? Was it the death of Lucerys that started the war? Or maybe it was Luke cutting out Aemond's eye and his father doing nothing about it. Rhaenys makes it clear that there are layers to this conflict, seeds that were planted years ago. It's easy to take these big actions for the most important ones, but the truth may actually be more obscure. Maybe it was actually none of these violent acts that led to the war. Maybe it was one man's ambition and belief in tradition. Or maybe it was a father's guilt and favoritism to one child above all the others that caused this division in his family. Rhaenys says that there is no war so hateful as a war between kin, and none so bloody as one between dragons. Despite everything that has happened, she still wants peace to be possible, so more people won't die. Which I find kind of funny since she killed a bunch of common folk just to flex on Aegon to make her escape. But the point stands. She pushes Rhaenyra to make peace with Alicent. Since she was a prisoner in the Red Keep before Aegon's coronation, she talked with Alicent and knows that she doesn't want war just like Rhaenyra. So perhaps there is still some hope for reconciliation. In King's Landing, Criston Cole seems to be contemplating his life decisions that led him to this moment. After the dismissal of Otto as Hand of the King, he has some pretty big shoes to fill, and he doesn't seem that prepared for a position like this. We also see that since you can't exactly put a pin on armor, Criston Cole has a link of hands around his collar to symbolize his new status as Hand of the King. Speaking of new, there are some new members of the Kingsguard. Aegon's friends, who don't really seem to be all that serious about their new jobs, have filled in the vacancies left behind by Auric Cargyle and those who sided with Rhaenyra in the Kingsguard. We'll see how big this dumpster fire really gets. There's a council meeting where they talk about plans moving forward. They bring up the Battle of the Burning Mill and the need to secure the Riverlands. The Riverlands, and Harrenhal specifically, are very strategic when it comes to war. The Riverlands are a key access point for many of the neighboring kingdoms, and to take control of it would give you the power to limit and advantage whoever you please when it comes to travel. Some of the counselors believe that the best way to get the Riverlands is to naturally go to its ruling lord, Grover Tully, but he's an old man going on the decline. He can barely even control himself, and if the Brackens and Blackwoods are anything to go by, he can't even control his own vassals. During this conversation, things seem to be a bit rocky with Criston Cole and Alicent, despite how close they are between closed doors. Alicent is angry at Criston for feeding into Aegon's impulses and potentially being the reason her father was sent away. There's also the death of Sir Auric Cargyle. As the Greens make their plans, Tywin Lannister says his brother Jason, the Lord of Castle Rock, and a man who once wanted to marry Rhaenyra in the past but was rejected, is amassing his forces in the west. It's also said that Aegon's relative Ormond Hightower is amassing forces in Old Town and is on the march, but he's months away from being of any immediate help. Daemon, the fourth child of Alicent and Viserys, is also mentioned here. Daemon has a dragon named Tessarion, the Blue Queen, like how Meleys is called the Red Queen, and Tessarion is said to be of almost fighting size, so there is some more firepower coming for the Greens. Aegon wants Aemond to go with Criston Cole to the Riverlands with Vhagar, but they speak against this. Vhagar, being the largest dragon in the world, is the sole deterrent for the Blacks attacking the city. Aegon also offers to go, but is once again shot down. As the king, if he gets shot down by a scorpion bolt or another dragon, it would be a devastating blow to the Greens, especially since Aegon no longer has an heir. Well, no, that's not exactly true. With the death of Jaehaerys, since the Greens favor the male bloodline, this makes Aemond the heir to Aegon, like how Daemon was heir to Viserys until he had a son, or until he named Rhaenyra his heir. Speaking of Aemond, I noticed something in this scene. Aemond toys with a coin. This is the same coin he found last episode from when Blood and Cheese infiltrated the castle. In that video, I alluded to there being some symbolism with this coin. I want to expand on that a bit more here. Now, someone already mentioned some of what I'm going to say in the comment section of my last review episode 2 of season 2, but admittedly, when I saw this scene for the first time, this did come to mind, though I didn't elaborate on it too much in that video, so please don't think I'm stealing anything from my viewers. I would never. In episode 2, Aemond puts this coin over his remaining eye. In some cultures and practices, a coin over the eye symbolizes death. So this could be foreshadowing differing things. Possibly the death of Aemond, or it could be foreshadowing Aemond bringing death to someone else. But with that added context, seeing Aemond playing with the coin in this new episode, it's also like he's playing with death, toying with it. And it makes me think of that saying, don't tempt fate. So, what will his fate be as the story moves forward? During this conversation, Aegon says that he's as fearsome as any of them. Through the season so far, we've seen how much Aegon cares for his image. He wants to be loved by the small folk. They gave him the unconditional love he never got from his family. He wants to be seen as strong. Aegon the Conqueror was strong, and he's named after him. And we see in the episode how he tries to fill his shoes. Well, armor, and it doesn't really seem to be the best fit. But we'll get into that later. Aegon wants to present an image to prove himself as a true Targaryen king. Aegon spent his life being overlooked by his father Viserys and believed that he didn't love him.
He changed his mind.
Wow. He could have, but he never did. Because he didn't like me.
And when Alicent gave him the dagger that belonged to Aegon the Conqueror, that holds the Song of Ice and Fire, not that he knows that, this dagger that will one day kill the Night King, he felt that maybe, just maybe, he was wrong. And some part of Viserys did care, but Otto shot that down last episode.
He made me king.
Is that what you think?
So everything is a lie, and as a result, Aegon seems to want to establish himself and his worth as a Targaryen even more. How would he feel if he knew the real truth? That beyond Otto's schemes, everything his mother said about Viserys choosing him was a lie, a misunderstanding, and that even in death, Viserys only thought of Rhaenyra. On Dragonstone, Mysaria and Rhaenyra talk about what happened between the Cargyle brothers. In exchange for her help, Mysaria asks for a seat on Rhaenyra's council. She sees the possibility and profit from siding with Rhaenyra. She cares about the small folk, and unlike her brother Aegon, Mysaria sees the capacity for mercy in Rhaenyra. Sea smoke flies in the background. Rhaenyra says he's restless and she doesn't know why. Mysaria says that maybe he's lonely. It has been years since Laenor left to wherever with his lover Qarl, and dragons have a mystical bond with their riders. Based on what Rhaenyra said during this sequence, he was calm until now. If he's connected to Laenor, perhaps this could be a sign. Maybe he's on his way back. Or perhaps something terrible has befallen the son of the sea snake, and the dragon being linked to him knows it. If this is true and Rhaenyra finds out, how will she feel? Rhaenyra has a conversation with Rhaena, the younger twin sister of Baela. She wants Rhaena to go to the Vale with Joffrey and his brothers Aegon the Younger and Viserys. When Jacaerys made a deal with House Arryn to get them on their side, Lady Jane asked for a dragon in return to defend the Vale, so Rhaenyra kind of finesses Lady Jane. She gives her a dragon, just not a big one. Joffrey's dragon Tyraxes is pretty much a hatchling, and if Aemond decided to go to the Eyrie on Vhagar like Visenya did over 100 years ago, he wouldn't even equate to a Happy Meal. Rhaena hates that she's being sent away to be a glorified babysitter. She asks what's going to happen to Baela, to which Rhaenyra says that Baela is needed with them. Rhaena says,
Because she has a dragon.
Like her cousin Aemond, Rhaena was different from other Targaryens. Her dragon egg never hatched, and she felt neglected by her father Daemon because of it. Daemon spent more time with her sister when they were younger, but despite seemingly being the favorite child, Baela says that she hates Daemon sometimes. I can only imagine how Rhaena feels about him. But we can see she feels different, ostracized, that she's not good enough. We see that insecurity she has over never hatching an egg, and after all this time, never claiming a dragon of her own. Which makes you wonder, if she wanted a dragon so badly, cared so much about it, why did she never make attempts to claim one after all these years she's been on Dragonstone? There are plenty of unclaimed dragons here, one of them being Vermithor, the Bronze Fury, the second largest dragon in the world. If she had claimed him, this may have given the Blacks the means to take on Vhagar much earlier. Both her cousin Aemond and her mother Rhaena have said that if you want a dragon, you have to claim one and earn that right.
But if you wish to be a rider, you must claim that right.
Vhagar has a new rider now.
She was mine to claim.
Then you should have claimed her.
Perhaps Rhaena is holding on to the hope that she may still get her mother's dragon, Vhagar, but the only way for that to happen is if someone kills Aemond and severs the bond he has to her. Daemon arrives at Harrenhal, the ruined castle once known as the largest and greatest in the realm. But years ago, Aegon the Conqueror came to Westeros, and when Harren the Black refused to kneel and locked himself inside with his sons, Aegon descended with Balerion the Black Dread, a dragon even larger than Vhagar, and in the words of Euron Greyjoy,
the world's greatest castle became the world's greatest oven.
The damage done to this place by Aegon and the sheer size of it as well has deterred the lords who have held this place from ever trying to repair it. Some even say that because of what Aegon did to Harrenhal, it may actually be cursed. Though Daemon hears this from Rhaenyra in Season 1, he believes it's all superstition. We'll see though. He meets Simon Strong, who pretty much welcomes Daemon with open arms, along with everyone else, save this one woman who looks at Daemon and does not seem impressed in the slightest, but we'll get to her later on. In the books, Simon Strong took one look at Daemon's dragon Caraxes when he came to Harrenhal, and decided that he wanted no smoke. But in the show, they add some more layers to this. Simon was the uncle of Lord Lionel, and he's suspicious of how he and his son, Harwin Strong, died. Harrenhal is such a damp place, yet a fire suddenly broke out, killing Lionel and his son, and then Larys the Clubfoot ascended to lordship. He suspects foul play, and refuses to acknowledge Larys as his lord. During this conversation, Simon and Daemon talk about the Blackwoods and the Brackens. Simon says that sin begets sin begets sin, and that the reason for the families fighting is lost to time. It's a never-ending cycle, one hateful act leading to another, until reason is lost, and this is something that could easily befall House Targaryen if it hasn't already. When talking to Lord Strong, Daemon asks to be called Your Grace. He wants to be addressed with his due authority. You see through such a small interaction how much Daemon desires to be seen and respected, as he always has. Back in King's Landing, Criston Cole gets a haircut, and as he prepares for war, we are introduced to Alicent's brother, Gawain Hightower. We've actually already seen Gawain before, when he jousted with Daemon in Season 1, and the rogue prince tripped his horse to get the win. Gawain doesn't like or respect Criston. He comes from humble beginnings. Despite being Lord Commander of the Kingsguard and Hand of the King, he's not nobility, or at least not from the upper class of nobility with ancient roots. Gawain doesn't like that his dad has been removed in favor of Criston Cole, and to make things worse, Criston Cole is Dornish. In the books, he isn't, but in the show, he is. At this point in history, Dorne, while considered a part of the Seven Kingdoms, had never actually sworn fealty to House Targaryen or conformed to their rules. They're still independent, and the crown has no real authority over them. They were the only kingdom to fend off Aegon and his sisters, even killing one of them, Rhaenys and her dragon Meraxes. So Westeros and Dorne have been at it for years, and to have a guy of not only low birth, but Dornish descent as the commander of the Kingsguard and Hand of the King seems insulting to some people, like Gawain. Even after all his advancements, Criston Cole still has his own trials and tribulations to deal with when it comes to discrimination. Criston asks for Alicent's favor, like how he asked for Rhaenyra's favor in Season 1 during the tournament before he leaves for battle. And we get an image of Cheese, whose decomposing body is having its eyes pecked out while he hangs on the walls for all to see. Back on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's council pressures her to make a move and to use the dragons to attack the Hightowers. Rhaenyra is reluctant to make a move because there are too many unknown variables, but she can only be passive for so long. But I don't blame her for trying to avoid war, but the men of her council think otherwise. It gets to the point where they pretty much offer to run the war without her, and Rhaenyra calls this treason. Then Rhaenys reminds them of old King Jaehaerys, her grandfather. Jaehaerys the Conciliator seen as one of the greatest Targaryen monarchs in history, and though he fought in wars, he never flew into them blindly. He was a wise man whose reign outlasted even that of Aegon the Conqueror. Rhaenys and Corlys then say their goodbyes. During this conversation, they discuss the heir to Driftmark. With Jace set to inherit the Iron Throne, and Lucerys now dead, it seems that the title of Lord of the Tides will fall to Joffrey. but he's young and knows nothing about the sea. Rhaenys then suggests that Rhaena become Corlys' heir. She did say in Season 1 that when Rhaena died, she wanted Baela to inherit Driftmark over Lucerys, but Corlys refused. Corlys says that they'll figure it out in time, but Rhaenys says that there may be no time. They are going to war, one where both sides have dragons at their disposal, so nothing is guaranteed for either of them. Rhaena says goodbye to her family as she sets off to the Vale. She still feels insulted by the fact that she's been sent away, but Rhaenyra comes along and instills her with a new sense of purpose instead. She's not just being sent away to protect the kids and to be put out of the way and disregarded, but to safeguard the future. If anything were to happen to them, it's best that they not put all their eggs in one basket. See what I did there? Yeah, I'll see myself out. Rhaena is given dragon eggs to safeguard and perhaps utilize should things go awry for the Blacks. Though it may be some time before these eggs will ever become useful. After all, dragons do need to grow. In King's Landing, Helaena talks with Alicent. During this conversation, she holds a bird cage in her hand. Perhaps this is symbolism for her, a bird in a cage only let out on certain occasions, like the progress through the city. She's like her mother, Alicent, who in many ways has been in her own inescapable prison as a result of her father's schemes. Helaena believes that she shouldn't be sad over the death of her son, because children die all the time in Westeros. She thinks that the common people have more of a right to grieve than her. But Alicent pretty much says that death comes for everyone. It doesn't matter who you were born as. Helaena is still a person and a mother, so she has every right to grieve. Then Helaena says, what about her? Acknowledging that she knows Alicent has repressed feelings and emotions of her own that she has stifled. Helaena says that she forgives Alicent. But for what? Sleeping with Criston Cole? Maybe if he had been on duty, he could have saved Jaehaerys. So Alicent does feel guilty about that. But maybe there's something more behind this. Maybe it's about how Alicent raised her daughter and treated some of her kids in certain instances. Alicent always had a bit of a disconnect with her children because of the way she had them. She loves them, but never actually wanted them, and not with the man she had them with. Throughout the story, Alicent is very much a character who represses a lot of her emotions. She's not allowed to express herself openly the way she wants to because she has a duty as a queen, and has to fit a certain image. Couple that with the fact that Alicent has valued the system of Westeros for so long, it's a part of her. She's very religious, and every time she gets with Criston Cole, she forsakes her beliefs and morals, and the guilt of a lot of her actions, not just with Criston, has been building up inside of her, with no proper release unless you count the sex she has. She tries to talk to Otto about some of this stuff, but he shuts her down, which is a pretty constant thing throughout their relationship. She has a lot going on internally, so essentially having her daughter saying that she forgives her probably means a lot to Alicent. It's as if Helaena is absolving her in a way. She probably feels recognized by her daughter, not just as a queen or a mother, but as a person. But that's my speculation. Aegon dons the armor of Aegon the Conqueror, his namesake. He says that since he was given his name and crown, it's only fitting. Except it isn't. Perhaps this is symbolism of Aegon trying to be something he isn't. A warrior, a ruler, but he tries all the same. He wants to fly with Criston Cole to the Riverlands, but Larys shows up and discourages him, saying that people may be plotting against him and plotting to steal his power. Larys plays into his paranoia, and Aegon makes him Master of Whispers, basically his chief spy. Aegon's friends and new members of the Kingsguard say they want to go to a brothel, and Aegon reminds them of their oaths of chastity. They laugh and don't think he's serious. These guys are really comfortable with Aegon. They don't seem too concerned with their vows and duties, just the prestige they gain that comes from being in a sacred order like the Kingsguard, and being friends with the king. They don't have their priorities straight, and it's not a good look for Aegon. We transition to a tavern in the city with a man named Ulf the White. Ulf claims to be the grandson of Jaehaerys the Conciliator, and the bastard son of Balon the Brave, the father of Viserys and Daemon. The scene is very much framed like he could be lying, but if this was true, this would make him the uncle to Rhaenyra and Aegon, and a dragon seed. Dragon seeds are those descended from those of Valyrian descent in Westeros. So anyone from houses Targaryen, Velaryon, maybe even the Celtigar, since they are a Valyrian family too, may count. The Baratheons are technically dragon seeds, because Orys Baratheon, the founder of the house, was said to be the bastard brother of Aegon the Conqueror. Back in those days, before the conquest, it was actually seen as an honor by the people of Dragonstone to bed Targaryens and bear their children, as they were seen as closer to gods than men. Now, is Ulf actually the son of Baelon the Brave? It's unlikely, considering that Baelon was very much in love with his wife Alyssa Targaryen, and her death shattered him. But we don't know what was left out of the history books. Maybe Baelon did fool around. Viserys and Daemon have admitted to sleeping in brothels when they were younger.
When we were Rhaenyra's age, we fucked our way through most of the brothels on the Street of Silk.
We were young men.
So they may have a few bastards of their own running around out there that they're unaware of. Maybe the same could be said for their father. Or maybe it's just a tall tale spun by Ulf to entertain. But he could still have Valyrian ancestors, maybe just not the ones he claims. The Targaryens did get around a little bit back in the day, so anything is possible. While this conversation takes place, we see Diana from Season 1. This was the servant girl that was assaulted by Aegon, then paid off by Alicent so she can go live a different life, and she was given moon tea to prevent pregnancy. I can only imagine how she feels when Aegon walks in and she has to serve him, but he doesn't seem to recognize her. Aegon goes to a brothel with his friends after this, and finds Aemond with Sylvie. Apparently, Sylvie was the first woman Aemond ever slept with, and he seems to have an attachment to her. Aegon mocks Aemond for this, kind of like how he mocked him as a kid for not having a dragon.
Be sure to mount her carefully. First flight's always rough.
Like a hound.
Aemond sits there and endures being embarrassed and ashamed by his older brother. He doesn't look confident here. Even if he is a better warrior than Aegon, he still feels less than his big brother, especially with him being caught in his most vulnerable state. No clothes, no sword, no armor, no dragon. He's completely exposed to Aegon, and it takes him a moment to regain his composure and put the mask of a mighty Targaryen prince back on. Not a good move on Aegon's part to bully the biggest weapon in his arsenal. We go back to Dragonstone, and Rhaenyra finally reads the message Alicent sent to her after the death of her son Lucerys, which solidifies to her that Alicent doesn't want war, and maybe there is a chance for peace. From here, Criston Cole confronts Gawain, who wants to go to an inn instead of follow his orders, and doesn't seem to be taking Criston very seriously. But this changes when Baela shows up out of nowhere on Moondancer and chases them. Baela was told not to engage with the enemy by Rhaenyra, but like her father Daemon, she's brave and finds wiggle room to do what she wants. After this terrifyingly close call, Gawain seems to be more willing to listen to Criston, and Criston is less willing to deal with his nonsense. I wonder what they're going to do with this relationship moving forward. Though Criston is a lowborn, he is actually experienced when it comes to conflict. Meanwhile, though Gawain is a highborn, he's still very ignorant about some things. Perhaps he'll learn a thing or two from Criston. Maybe they'll become friends. How will he feel if he finds out about him and his sister Alicent? Back on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's council once again pushes her to act after Baela makes a report on Criston Cole. She says that she'll consider what they have to say, and then we move to Harrenhal. Daemon has locked himself in a room and is pacing around. Despite claiming Harrenhal and the lords pledging him fealty, he's still paranoid and distrusting, ready for a fight, and he gets one, just not what he expected. Daemon has a vision of a young Rhaenyra sewing the head of the dead Prince Jaehaerys back on. It seems like Daemon is harboring some guilt for the two of them. Rhaenyra and Jaehaerys are arguably the two people who have been affected the most by his actions as of late, and now the consequences are coming back to haunt him. Daemon wakes up near a weirwood tree. Weirwood trees are sacred to the children of the forest, and as we've seen with them in Brand, they're also access points to the past and the future. So it adds a layer to what this woman says when she shows up.
You will die in this place.
This is Alice Rivers. By the name Rivers, you can inquire that she is indeed a bastard. Every region in Westeros has a surname for its bastards, like Jon Snow. Snow is a surname for bastards born in the north, but considering Jon was born in Dorne, technically his surname should be Sand. Either way, there are debates on who Alice Rivers actually is in the books. Some say that she's a wet nurse. Some say that she's a serving wench who dabbles in potions here or there. Some say that she's actually the bastard daughter of Lionel Strong. If this is true, that would make her the half-sister to Harwin and Larys Strong, and the aunt to Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey. They also say that in the books, Alice may be a witch who bathes in the blood of maidens to retain her youth. No one really knows who or what she is, but it seems like the show is leaning into the latter. She seems to have knowledge. Perhaps she cast a spell on Daemon and brought him here beneath the weirwood tree. And since weirwood trees can be used to access time, perhaps there's some more weight to what she says to Daemon. Or maybe this is just another case of visions being misinterpreted and people seeing what they want to see. It happens all the time in A Song of Ice and Fire, but true or not, this is bound to make Daemon more paranoid than he already is. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra speaks to Mysaria, who comes up with a plan for her to speak with Alicent in person. As Alicent is a very religious woman, the only place that she really goes where she's unattended is the Sept. So Rhaenyra disguises herself as a Septa and strolls through the city of King's Landing to go and meet her. No one recognizes her because her hair is covered, and to be honest, not many of the common people actually know what half the royal family even looks like. Plus, no one would really expect Rhaenyra to do something so dumb like walk right through the front gates of King's Landing. But she does. And then she speaks with Alicent, and about their mutual desire to avoid war. Rhaenyra calls her out for stealing the throne, and Alicent says that Viserys changed his mind. Rhaenyra calls her a liar until she swears on the memory of her mother, like Rhaenyra did when Alicent confronted her about her sleeping with Daemon.
I swear this to you, on the memory of my mother.
Daemon never touched me. I swear this to you, upon the memory of my mother.
Both of their mothers hold a very significant weight to both of these women. Alicent says that Viserys' last words were about Aegon, and for a moment, Rhaenyra believes Alicent. She believes she's telling the truth, that her father did change his mind, until Alicent mentions the prince that was promised from A Song of Ice and Fire. This reaffirms to Rhaenyra that Viserys did choose her in the end, and she clears the air with Alicent, who realizes the mistake she's made over the ramblings of a dying old man. Rhaenyra believes that since they both understand Viserys' dying words now, that they can both move forward and push for peace. But Alicent says that there was no mistake made, and that it's too late. And to be honest, Alicent is right. Though Rhaenyra tries to get her to stay and guilt her into working things out for the sake of the realm and for peace, she severely overestimates the power that Alicent has. Alicent may be a queen, but she's not the queen. She's Queen Dowager, but not Queen Consort, or the ruling queen like Rhaenyra is. While she has some power and respect and influence, she has virtually no influence over her son Aegon. Criston Cole is marching off to war, Aemond wants blood, and Otto has been dismissed. Even if he had stayed and Alicent told him the truth, it honestly wouldn't have mattered. Otto was already planning to make Aegon king regardless of what Viserys wanted, so whether or not he had Alicent supposedly hearing his last wish to go off of, it would not have mattered to someone like Otto. Rhaenyra really overestimates what's to be gained here from this meeting, as unlike the Blacks, the Greens are not a tight-knit family unit. They are falling apart at the seams each day, and there is no telling what will happen to them next. But all in all, this wasn't a bad episode, but that ending combo was interesting to say the least, as this never happened in the books and this is bound to have some ramifications later on. But I am looking forward to more. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell me what you thought down below, and I will see you all next time.